One. Welcome to this episode of Inspirational People. I'm Jason Scott Montoya, and today I get to introduce you to Akilah Charlemagne. Akilah, say hello. Did I get it right?
Hi, everyone.
Akilah is a connector, speaker, career coach, and HR business partner. She's passionate about energizing and equipping people to take risks and propel their career forward. Our mutual friend, Chi Okezie, says Akilah is a powerhouse when it comes to all things HR and training, and she has the ability to infuse her brand with her values to produce exceptional results. My wife, Cait, connected the two of us, and now here we are. So before I jump into my questions, tell me about you, your story, and what do you do?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Jason. So my story, my recent story, I should say, because we all have many stories, right? Moved back to Atlanta about 8 years ago, around this time, actually, right around Memorial.
Okay. So from where?
Cait. So not too far away, Columbus, Georgia.
Okay.
It's actually where our son was born.
Okay.
I was with a major retailer at the time, Target, as an HR manager, and really had made a decision that I just wanted to have a better work-life balance.
Yeah.
Great company, but after a while, 7 years in retail and working all the holidays and not being able to travel for Christmas and things of that nature, I just felt it was time for a change. And so 2012, the economy was starting to recover, but wasn't great. But I made the bold decision to quit my job without having another job. In hindsight, maybe I would have done things a little bit differently, but that wasn't the story that I was supposed to have. And so moved back to Atlanta, moved in with my husband, my 1-year-old child, to my mom's house. Till, kind of figure things out.
And that, how long ago was that?
That was 8 years ago.
Okay, so that was it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And during that time, so I had been gone from Atlanta about 7 years. I moved around the South quite a bit, opening stores for Target, and just taking risks with my career at the time.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I was like, wow, I don't really know as many people as I used to, right? 7 years is a long time. And so had a few connections. And so just one by one started re-engaging with people, some friends, some colleagues, and each, were able to connect me to other people, networking organizations, professional associations. I'm an HR professional by trade. Yeah. And so I've been in human resources for 15 years. And so it was important that I found my next exciting career in HR.
Yeah. Is that something you had kind of known about at a younger age, or did you kind of stumble upon it?
Not at all. But we'll get there in a second, because I think there's a connection for sure. And so, with moving back here and just reestablishing those relationships, it was just also important that I continue to develop myself professionally. So even though I had been in HR for 7 years, there was still a lot I didn't know, right? And throughout that time, I initially thought, 5-6 months, I know I'll land another job, right? Yeah. I've got 7 years of HR experience, another 5 years of leadership experience, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, that plan didn't work out. So it took about 10 months for me to land my first role. And what happens in that time, the bank account goes down. It was not ideal. I was in my early 30s at the time, and having to rely on my mother wasn't ideal, right? Very humbling experience. Yeah. But again, all things I needed to go through. So, fast forward, those 10 months, I had really started really developing some great relationships. Yeah. And one of the things I learned during that time was the importance of really being a net weaver. Networkers are great as well, but sometimes networking can get a bad rap of being very transactional versus developing meaningful relationships. Yeah. And so when I say a net weaver, it is having a conversation. I'm meeting you, Jason, and I have a conversation with you, like, oh, he should know so-and-so. Yeah. Let me make an introduction, because I really feel this could benefit them both, mutually. Yeah. And there's nothing in it for me, right? Yeah. And so it's really that coming from that servant leadership perspective. And so during that journey, learning all those things, fast forward, I've been with some amazing corporations since then. I also ventured out last year and started my own company, Career Lemonade.
Okay.
And really the concept is about really turning those those lemons into lemonades, right?
Yeah.
The things that are bitter in your professional career or in life, and how can you take them and then make something sweet? And so I work with my clients to really come up with a strategy for their career, to leverage their strengths, the things that energize them, to come up with a plan, because I really do believe we all can find our own success in our own way, and just customizing what works for them. And so, I have a discovery conversation with them, and then we go on and we take on the world together. So that's a little bit about me.
And so, yeah, it's interesting. What do you think about Atlanta? I mean, I moved here in 2005 from Arizona, so it's quite a change, 20 years from one to the next, and I've come to love it. And I enjoy the diversity and this in terms of in a variety of different ways. But I enjoy the city of Atlanta. We're out in the more of the northern Atlanta area now in Gwinnett, but okay.
So this is my third time living here.
Okay.
So I first moved here in 2001. I did not love it. Back then I was, I grew up in New York City, very fast-paced city, of course. And so Atlanta for me back then was super slow.
Okay.
And then moved back up north, and it was like, it's too expensive. I need to get my life together. So let me give the South a chance. So I moved back 2005. Okay. And what made me move again wasn't because I no longer liked it. It really was a job opportunity. And so
I imagine it's changed like from now to when you first came here.
It is. And we love it. I mean, I love it so much. Like you said, the diversity of things to do, obviously not right now, but it really has been a really great place. And then, we moved to Gwinnett as well 3 years ago, and love the diversity. I mean, Gwinnett's one of the most diverse counties. I think it might be the most diverse county in Georgia. And so being able to have our son go to school with all types of people and teachers, that's been really great. And it's just a really friendly community. And so we both go to Gwinnett Church, and it's been really great to just be in an environment that we just thrive. But Atlanta in general, I really enjoy it. There was a point where I thought I would move back up north, but
it's too warm here. I think it's too cold up there. You want to stay in the warm. So, we'll talk. I want to talk about stories and systems and living better and working smarter. But we just kind of got blindsided as the world has got blindsided by this coronavirus crisis. So, how do we look at this situation? How do we respond? Should we put our heads in the sand and ignore it? Should we panic? Should we do something else? How do we hold on, and how do we move forward here?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Prior to kind of everything, really, once we started realizing like this was like for real. So I'm a part of a women's small group through Gwinnett Church, and we started this series here, Trustworthy, by Lisa Turkhurst.
Okay, I haven't heard of it.
I always mess up her last name, but
seems like a really relevant topic.
And when we picked the study, I mean, this hadn't really, we had heard about coronavirus, but we didn't know the severity of it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, so each Monday we meet via Zoom, and, just unpacking this and just talking about trusting in the midst of chaos and uncertainty was so relevant to what we would face. And then also just having a sense of community. So even though I am an extreme extrovert, people energize me, and I can be with people all day long and still want to be with them at night. That's how I am. I thought I would really struggle with this time period, but look at the beauty of technology, right? So we're sitting here talking, and even though we are miles apart, like I feel like I'm in the room with you. Same thing with my the group of women that I meet with each week. We get on our Zoom calls, and we share, we catch up, we trade stories. We all have challenges that we're facing in our families, and balancing taking care of our children and helping them learn, and hoping that we're not messing things up. Being with our spouses and partners, and still working, some of us, and all that. Just a lot of pressure. And so having a group, some type of community, so whether it's it doesn't have to be through a spiritual connection. It could be a group, maybe it's your high school friends or college friends, or maybe it's some relationships you develop at work. And having some sense of community is so important during this time, where you can just take a moment and just breathe and not be in a judgmental, just a judgment-free zone. I think that's really, really important. And remembering, for me, I love music. I speak and sometimes think in music. There's a song for a theme or something I'm going through. But for me, I also get renewed by that. So, case in point, yesterday, my son was not, he was going through a thing just like we do, right?
Yeah.
And I was rushing because I wanted to finish working out, get breakfast with him, get on my first call. And his attitude kind of threw me into a tailspin. I'll be honest with you. And I was like, oh gosh, I have to get in a good headspace for my first meeting.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just put on some meditation music, right? And so it got me recentered and refocused. So I think the main thing is find what works for you. Some people like to go outside and garden. Yeah. That's not my testimony. If that's you, a walk, calling old friends, just whatever it is, I think there's ways that we can stay connected. And I think it was Todd, I think you interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and you talked about setting a pre-recorded video. I love that.
Yeah.
And I did that a couple of times. I didn't necessarily think about me not interrupting someone's day. I was like, oh, this is a really quick way for me to send a message to someone I care about, let them know I think about them. Yeah. And so I think there are ways we can be creative to stay in contact during this time. And it's also okay to acknowledge that we're not going to be okay every day, right? Yeah. And so there's so many resources available. So whether it's through your employer, if you work for a larger corporation or a mid-sized company, if you don't, that's okay. There's a lot of really great community-based resources as well to get you through, because this is also really hard on a variety of people for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess to transition then, kind of to cast the vision of what it is we're trying to get to, what does it look like to live better and work smarter? And how do you go about that in normal times, and how is that might maybe different because of the situation?
Yes. And, it's important that we take this time to note and pay attention, because I think if we get through this time and we go back to exactly how things were, the fast pace that many of us talk about, the busyness of life, and we don't reflect on the time that we had here, where I'm sure there's a couple people who can raise their hands and say, hey, not having to take the kids to 5 different activities on a Saturday actually feels pretty good, or not going to 3 networking events or, business meetings feels pretty good. Not sitting in all day meetings feels pretty good. So I think being able to reflect on this time and take note of what could be different, what are some things that we didn't prioritize that we need to in order to do so. Even things like time off, like, I took a half day this afternoon, not because I have anywhere to go, just because, it would feel really great to just sit on the couch with my kid and watch a movie, and, not taking things like that for granted. So a couple of things in terms of how can we just live better lives is, the first thing I would say is pause and take notice. So when something doesn't feel right, or when something does feel right, what is it about that situation that does or doesn't? I think sometimes we're so busy running that we don't take time to pause and take stock of what's working and what's not working. So that's the first thing. Then you might think, well, I took notice, but I don't know what to do with this, right? How do I unpack this? And so this is, again, knowing yourself. For me, I do like counsel of others. Doesn't mean I go to someone for everything, but there are times where I really want to take the counsel of others. And so if that's how you are, have your trusted board of advisors, people that you can really go to that can say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I'm not sure where it's coming from. You know me. Can you help me unpack this? Or if that's not you, it's just quiet time, okay? So is that meditation, is just sitting and reflecting, just writing down words that you're feeling, or it could be reading the Bible if that's your faith, whatever it may be. I think and it could be a mix of those two things for sure. And then I would also say have an accountability partner is the third thing.
Yeah.
That accountability partner could be the same person to help you unpack it, or it could be someone different. So now that you've noticed what you need to do, you've kind of unpacked why you're feeling that way. Now you want to act on it. That accountability partner can really help you say, hey, Jason, now you said that you were going to do X, Y, and Z. It's been a couple weeks, I haven't heard anything. What's going on there? It's someone that you trust that will not just tell you the good stuff. They'll tell you that, but they'll also say, hey, you need to work on this. You need to consider this. You said that you were going to, go on walks. Now that we're on this, at least once a week with your child, what's going on there? You said that you were going to start writing that book. What's happening there? So it's really that person like a check-in. So I'd say pause, then unpack what you're feeling, and then have an accountability partner 3 weeks.
So what would you say to the skeptic that says, well, what's in it for me? What's the benefit of doing that thing process you're talking about?
And that's a great question. So I think it could be a couple of things. There could be a benefit, or they may not. There might be a benefit for someone else, right? Yeah. And so again, it's what are you seeing for yourself in a year from now, 2 years from now? Are you completely content with where things are today? Is everything just perfect and working flawlessly? Then if yes, maybe you don't need to change anything. Well, then teach someone else. Yeah. How did you get your life to be so flawless? I want to know. But if it isn't flawless, which I suspect many of us, our lives aren't flawless, how can you be better? Can we get 1% better than we were last year? 2%, 5%. What does that look like? The other thing I would say is for those of us who either have children we gave birth to, or we have children that we've adopted have come into our lives, younger people are always watching us. They're watching everything that we do. And so, I'll give a perfect example. I consider myself to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. So is my husband. And the other day, our son wrote down a business plan. I was like, what is this? And he had crafted what his business would be, right? Yeah. And it was a fluttering of things. But then, but the thing is, he's paying attention to the fact that mommy and daddy are entrepreneurs, that we are. And so same thing, he's paying attention to the words that we say to each other. He's paying attention, do we take time to he's paying attention to everything. Yeah. And that goes for anyone in our lives who are just, I think our children right now, it's a confusing time for us as adults. Yeah. It's uber confusing for them, right? And so whether you have a middle schooler or a high schooler, even, college students who are graduating this year, that graduation looks different. They're all looking to the adults, to the people who've lived lives longer, to have some sense, right? And so I think if we don't take stock of those things, who's watching us that we're not even paying attention to, that the thing that we're still doing that's destructive, we're still doing it. Someone's watching that and can carry on that behavior, which we may not want them to have that behavior. Yeah, interesting. So, it's one thing to live better, work smarter, and to sort of incorporate that in our own life. How do we help others do that? What does that look like, and how do we bring them along? Yeah, absolutely. So I think we got to be kind. We got to be kind to one another. Yeah. You can use the same kind of concept, pause and take note, right? Yeah. So let's say I'm on a call with someone, whether it's a colleague or it's a friend, and this person's usually has a certain personality or something about them, and something seems a little off. Yeah. I don't have to say anything in that meeting or on that call. Send them a video message, right? Say, hey, I would love to catch up and, see how things are going. Yeah. It could just really be checking in with people to see how they are. I do a face check. I kind of missed one a couple this week, but I do like a face check 3 or 4 times a day. I will send a picture of myself just smiling to 3 or 4 people that I know, and just say, hey, just check in. How are you doing? So I think we have to be kind and check in with people. The other thing is extending grace, which is not always easy. And you think, oh, you're Christian, you should not always easy. And
Compassion
so,
is a big,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And
but it's
compassion for
knowing
self
that,
too, not just for
yeah,
others. Yeah.
exactly. But it's knowing that these times there's so much going on and there's so much in people's heads, even more so than maybe before, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if they're working from home and they've got children or they've got older relatives living with them, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you can learn about something, or maybe
yeah,
read a headline, and all of a sudden your day could, be all screwed up,
right. And
or your headspace.
so maybe they're asking you a question for the 5th time that day or that week, right? Or maybe their tone in the email wasn't great. We can choose to extend grace, right? And to say, you know what, I don't know what's going on in Jason's world, but I'm not gonna internalize what he's maybe putting out to me, and I'm just gonna answer the question with no emotion, you know what I mean, or without anger. Or I'm gonna take a moment and say, hey, maybe what he said to me in that meeting, I'm sure he probably didn't mean it. Let me move forward. So I think it's either extending grace, and also, which one of my previous leaders would say, is assume good intentions. Assume good intentions. Because sometimes we come from this place of, oh, can you believe and this is what they meant, and there may not have been anything, and I've made that mistake. Right? And so if I can assume good intentions and extend grace, because I would hope that if I'm making a mistake, someone will extend some grace to me as well, right? Because we're all human. I think those are some of the things we can do to really pull people along. The third thing I would say is be consistent and show up as well as you possibly can. And it goes back to my previous statement of people are always watching, right? And so if I show up and I try my best every day to have a smile on my face and have a positive word or share some information that can help you, then that's how people learn to trust you, right? And you build up that credibility and that character, right? There's an old saying, your word is your bond, right? People have got to know you are who you say you are, right? And that's how they can bring them along. So I even think, and we talk about this in my small group, is that, we're not trying to convert people, but if someone sees every day that Akilah shows up this way, she's got a smile on her face, she's saying an encouraging word, I want to learn more about why is she the way she is? Oh, wow, she goes to this church. Let me go see what they're about. Whatever the case is. And again, it's not about conversion, but it's like showing up and letting people know who you are can really have a positive influence on them. And maybe it changes their opinion of a Christian, a woman, however they see you, they change that because of like, wow, I want to know more about how she is or how he is the way they are.
And how does leading others change the leader?
Oh my gosh, you're hitting with me with all the questions. There's so much to be learned. So yesterday, I mentioned when we were talking earlier, I went to a virtual graduation celebration. Some of the seniors from Georgia State University, and they're part of SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management. And I'm a member of SHRM Atlanta, which is the professional arm. And so it was just great to really connect with them. They obviously worked hard. Graduation day did not look the way they thought it would, right? And it was amazing. They put this together really kind of last minute. Some people even said this was a little bittersweet. We didn't even know if we would show up because this is not what we wanted, right? And just listening to them and the optimism they have for the world, despite having job offers rescinded or not having job offers, not having offers at all, not being able to celebrate their family and friends. The world looks so different and so scary. Let me tell you, I walked away from that call just energized and excited. Listening to them, and they still want to continue changing the world, right? They want to continue, and some want to go get advanced degrees, some are going to teach for America. I mean, just the variety of things that we're doing, that motivated me. So I think as a leader, no matter if you have 5 years, 10 years, 50 years of experience, you can learn from people who are either younger in their career or in a different title, right? Sometimes we think that someone's title establishes their power, right? There's so much I learned from people that, and even now with coronavirus, right? We've had to rely on some people that maybe some people have looked down upon, right? To run our stores, to run our hospitals, right? And so the titles or the perceived titles don't matter, or where someone else in their career doesn't matter. I learn, I mean, heck, you have children. I learned from my child, you know?
Yeah.
You should always, as a leader, come from a place of, I can continue to learn. And so one of the things I share with my clients is once you've mastered something, if you truly feel if you mastered it, teach it to someone else and go learn something new. Right? Because if we're still just saying, we're sitting here like, wow, I've got this year's of experience and I'm an expert and that's all you've got. That's all you've got.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about stories. We both love movies. Stories shape us, narratives shape how we see the world, and we love to consume stories, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. So what's a story, parable, fable, experience that shaped you, and how can they help us in this situation we're in?
Yeah, so another thing I usually encourage my clients to do, and this actually came up from, I was in another Bible study group a few years ago. A shout out to my friend Erica Robinson. Her birthday was yesterday, so we're having a virtual birthday party tonight. But anyway, we were part of this women's small group, and she asked us to interview 3 or 4 people who knew us under the age of 10.
Okay.
And to see what stories came up, and did some of those stories kind of shed light on who we are as people today? Or did we stray away from some of those things? There were things that were innate to us that the world told us wasn't true, and we kind of drew apart from that. So I interviewed, I think it was my mom, my aunt, and my uncle. And so I was born in a small Caribbean country called St. Vincent. And so at the time I lived with my grandparents. My mom had immigrated to the US right before my 4th birthday. So I was 3 at the time. So my aunt was there and she wanted to throw me this amazing 4th birthday party. So I was like, so tell me about that. And she said, well, I just really wanted to make it special because I knew your mom wouldn't be there. And so and my aunt's she loves playing parties, so that's who she is. So she's telling me the story, I'm kind of envisioning everything. And she said, I thought it was so funny, it tickled me. You asked me, again, I was 3 years old, you asked me who were the attendees coming to your party, and not only who was coming, but like how they were connected to it. How do they know our family? You know, were they friends with their grandma? All these things. And I laughed because I consider myself to be a connector. And I actually took an assessment called Standout that actually says I'm a connector. So, and it's funny, people have said that about me for so long, and I didn't kind of quite own it. When I heard that story, it really made me laugh because it goes to show that at a very young age, relationships and how people connected in the world was a part of me and a part of my story. You asked me earlier, human resources, how did I get here? It wasn't a master plan, but now I know that this is the place I'm supposed to be because every day I'm thinking about how this business priority that we have connects with the people, right? Or I'm talking with an employee and they're saying, hey, I want to do this next in my career, but I'm not quite sure how to get started. And I'm really thinking, oh, I need to introduce them to so-and-so. And so for me, how people connect and the world has always been a part of who I am since a little girl. And so I think that's so important for anyone listening is talk to a couple of people who've known you under the age of 10. What are some of those stories that come up that speak to the truth of who you are today? Or maybe something that you've run away from, you know, for a variety of reasons. And now, don't get me wrong, not everything we did as children we need to continue doing. But I think there's some fundamental truths. And so when I asked my clients that question, I actually interviewed someone the other day, and she said, you know, I wanted to be a doula. I was like, really? Tell me more. And she's like, it's really about bringing life to something, right? And she also talked about being like a designer. And it's like transformation excites me and really seeing that change. And those are powerful words. And she's like, wow, I haven't thought about this in a really long time. And that's why I asked that question, because there are things that are really sometimes buried deep inside of us that we're either afraid to acknowledge or just, you know, we just forgot about. And just asking a couple of questions to people who knew us can really have an impact. So that story of being a little girl, asking that question really resonates with me today as a professional, because I'm like, yeah, that is who I am, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we talk about stories. Now let's talk about systems. You're in HR. I imagine there's a lot of different types of systems that you tap into or that are in that world. So what is a system to you? And how do you leverage them, and when are they useful and when are they not?
Yeah. Well, gosh. So, I mean, there are a variety of systems that we look at from a people perspective, whether it's data that we have that how do people come into the organization? What are some career opportunities that they have? So you might hear the term HRIS, which is, HR information system.
Okay.
And so you can definitely utilize some of those things to really tell the story. When you talk about story, data can tell the story, right? So it's how we use it and leverage that information to share that. And so for me, when I work with the clients, what internal clients of the company I work for now, is really, can I extract data and then tell a story about what we're doing, right? And so whether we're saying, hey, we want to focus on hiring more women in a role or a department that's mostly male. Yeah. How do we go about that? How do we bring women into our organization? How do we train them? How do we make sure they feel inclusive into the environment? If they're leaving, why are they leaving? And so the data that the systems that we use are really around people, and it really can help tell the story of how people come in, how they grow, and sometimes when they leave.
Yeah. So, and what does that narrative tell you? Well, let's say you have the data. What can it tell you? And let's say you don't have the data. What are those businesses or organizations losing?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's so to answer the question, like, what do you do with the data, right? So for a long time, I think there was a perception in HR that we didn't always provide the data and the insights into people and how things were happening in order to impact the business. At the end of the day, if you're a human resources professional, it's so critical that you know the business, and I think back to my days at Target, I would walk the floor and my store manager would ask questions, right? And so it was important for me to know not only what did we sell, but what were our most profitable items, right? So that way, when I'm as an HR person making the schedule for that store, I needed to know I had to have more people in this side of the business, because guess what? Maybe the items were less dollars, so let's say clothing, but the markup was higher, right? Okay. And it was going to get messier because people are shopping for electronics versus clothing. It's not going to be as messy, right? So I had to have more people on staff. So you can use that data and those stories to really help you build better models for what you would need so that you can provide better service. At the end of the day, most of us are in the business of service, right? And so really getting to what your clients need, you can leverage that information in order to plan effectively. For organizations who don't have it, a lot of times, I think we sometimes make things complicated, right? So whether you are a small business or you're a large corporation, the things you have access to might be different, but you can get at the information in very, very simple ways, right? So I would always tell someone, think of the smaller number and then build it up, right? So if I have 5 customers a day, okay? 5 times 5 days a week is 25. You know what I mean? You can multiply things to really get to the heart of what's my revenue? How many people are writing positive reviews for me? If they didn't come back, why didn't they come back? And so there are ways you can build that out anecdotally, or there's great platforms you can use to really, CRMs, customer relationship management, to really keep track of that. So whether you're using Excel, or you want to invest in a system to help you manage client relationships, you can do that as well. But I think not paying attention to the data and not doing things to really pull it, extract it, analyze it, then you're making a mistake.
And what's the consequence of making that mistake?
You can go out of business, right? Yeah. So if let's say even my business right now, Career Lemonade, is a word of mouth business, right? So I'm not overly advertising, and that's for a variety of reasons. But if I just rely on, oh, so-and-so referred someone, and I don't maybe send a thank you note for the person who referred me, or I don't keep in contact with that person, that client, check in, hey, so how are you doing? Did you land a new job? If I don't have a system in place of managing those relationships,
Yeah.
They may need to switch jobs in a year, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't reached out to them. I haven't stayed connected. Guess what? There's a lot of career coaches out there, right? So if I don't establish those relationships and sustain them, the danger is they may go somewhere else, or they may not think of me top of mind the next time someone says, oh my gosh, I need to make a switch in my career. Do you know of anyone?
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind. So I think the danger is we can close ourselves off to our clients. We can never take for granted the people who have trusted us to serve them, that they will always be there. So it's important to maintain those relationships, check on them, even when you don't need anything, to be able to make sure you're sustaining those relationships.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I kind of write about some of that in my book, Path to the Freelancer, and just a lot of freelancers, they neglect some of the business aspects of their work, and they focus on the creative and the technical, and then they can't pay their bills. So it's that you got to balance.
You have to balance.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to having that board of directors, right?
Yeah.
So some people call them, right? But I think it's important to have someone in your corner that, whether it's an accountant per se, or someone who's great with finances, to have that. My best friend from high school is a lawyer. Type of law she does doesn't always coincide with what I may need from a lawyer, but guess what? She's got contacts and people in that world, so she can bounce things off. So I think it's important for us to have people in our lives that can really share those insights and expertise. Have an HR person as a friend. Guess what? Whether you are a business of one, business of 100, you need to really know how to manage and interact with people and develop human relationships. So have an HR person that you know, that it's either a friend or a colleague, whether you're calling them up or you're paying them for support, whatever the case may be. Have a couple of key people that's in your life. There are people that I know that are entrepreneurs. They've been doing this for much longer than I am. I have them like, hey, when you hit this roadblock, how did you handle that? Have some good sounding boards in your life to help you with that and help, because again, we all don't know everything.
Yeah. And do systems matter more or less in this crisis? How do we?
I think they probably matter more. But again, it's how you're using it. At the end of the day, the first thing is the people. Like I will say, sometimes we rely on the systems when we can just pick up the phone, right? So it's simple, like you're trying to communicate with someone, you send them an email. Well, I send them 4 emails, and the first question I ask, like, well, did you pick up the phone and call Jason? No. Okay.
Try a different approach.
Pick up the phone and call Jason. Email was designed to make our lives easier, but sometimes we use it as a crutch to like not have the human interaction. Where I say it's more is systems can help us. There's so much data that we all have in our heads that come in through our emails, social media sites. So how do we help get through all that data, right? And systems can help automate some of those things and help us see trends that maybe we didn't even see. I'm not I have to use Excel by the nature of my job. I'm in human resources. And I've had to learn over the last few years how to do pivot tables. That's not something I knew how to do 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Now I leverage it. Now, am I the best pivot table creator? No, but I know the basics to pull out the things that I need to present data to my clients, right? And so I think it's really important that you have things at your fingertips, and that instead of me going through and checking things off, I can use the system to help automate some of those things and make my life easier. For many of us, we organizational planning for what does return to work look like, right? So with that, I can't just, especially if you work for any size organization really, but if you're thinking, okay, let's say I'm a 50-person company. The office that we had maybe 5 people in each office. Well, maybe with this, we can't have those 5 people. So how do I assess who's going to be coming in? How do I prioritize? Does everyone need to come back? Does maybe a portion need to come back? How do we space the rooms when they do come back? So there are things that we have to assess, and systems can help us do modeling
Yeah.
and determine what's the best way, because again, it's about taking care of the people. So what's the best way to take care of our people by using a system to help us? But I think it has to be a balance. You still also need to use common sense too, because
Yeah.
the system might say something. You're like, wait, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I got to know my team best and know what's the best thing for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Well, as we kind of navigate life, it can be good, it can be bad, it can be prosperous, it can it can have suffering in it. It's hard, it's joyful, it's complicated.
All the things.
So as we go through this, what are your words of advice for us to just navigate life, to thrive, and to get through this situation we're in?
Yeah, I think the main thing is whether you have an intimate circle or you have a large circle, it's so important to stay connected and find ways of staying connected. I think sometimes it's creative. You have to be creative, and so whether it's when things go back, and I don't think things will go back to normal, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I think we'll have a new sense of normal. So whether you're interacting with people on a regular basis, or it's a blend of these virtual connections and in person, one other thing is make sure you stay connected. And I think look at it from a perspective of not what's in it for me, but how can I help Jason? Is there something that Jason needs that can help support him, his business, his family? And I think if we just take some time to really give back to the people in our lives, that's really, really great. So I think stay connected to people. And there are a couple of things you can do. Maybe it's saying, you know what, once a month, I'm going to make sure I, schedule a quick phone chat with one person. Maybe it's someone who thinks differently than me. Ooh, we're probably getting into a different topic there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to set a goal of how I'm going to connect and with whom and how often. So I think really goal setting is really important. The other thing is, well, I should have said this first, was really what are the things I need to do to take care of myself, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's physical activity, whether it's taking a drive, when the sun's out, I want to just take a drive up to Lake Lanier and just drive by, right?
Yeah.
What are some things that I can do to take care of myself and reflect? That's really, really important. And just finding joy. And I think also just going back and thinking about, what are my strengths? What are the things that really energize me, right?
Yeah.
And because when you're doing more of the things that are your strengths, you can then pour into others, right? And so for me, I love talking about managing people's careers, right? And what's next for them. And so I can do that any time of the day. It doesn't matter. It energizes me. So what's that for you? That no matter what time, midnight, 6 o'clock in the morning, you doing it, you're good at it, and it strengthens you. That's really, really important.
Yeah. It's great. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't get to yet?
Gosh, we've talked about so much. So I think one thing I didn't talk about was, but I talked a little bit about journaling, but I really believe in the power of visualization.
Okay.
And so, and for years I've done vision boards, and it's always so amazing at the end of the year, all the things that have come true. I also select a word for the year. Right.
Oh, okay.
And so I select a word that I want to live by.
Yeah.
And it comes to me in different ways. Sometimes it comes to me the end of the previous year. Sometimes it's not a couple months into the year. But think about that. And what could that word be for you? And so for me, my word is light. And it's so funny. When you pick a word, you will see that it comes to you in a lot of different ways, right? And so light actually comes up a lot now in conversations or texts I get from people, and they're like, do they know? But it's really, really great. And one of the things, when you have your word, another great coach that I've worked with, Susan Brown from Impact Coaching, says, what is your word expect? What's required of you with your word, right? So for light, what does light require of me, right? And so if I want to be a light to others, that means I assume good intentions, that I give them grace, that I give myself grace, that I'm taking care of myself. Those are all the things that light requires. And so I encourage people that are listening, whether it's a vision board that you're doing, or pick a word that you really want to live by for this year that can really help carry you. And you're not always, you're going to have moments where you feel opposite of that word, and that's okay. So it goes back to what we talked at the beginning: pause, reflect, and then find how to get yourself out of that hole. But I really think having that word for me really has helped. And it's funny, when I picked it, it was before all this, right?
Okay.
And so at a time where it seems very dark and the world seems very uncertain, the fact that I know that light, I have it, it's going to carry me through on the days where it doesn't feel so great. That really does help lift me up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. So
you're welcome.
I appreciate, just all that you've shared, and tell us how people can connect with you, what you're up to, if they're interested in working with you, what's the deal?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So Akilah Charlemagne. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at Akilah Connects. So that's AKILAHCONNECTS.
All right.
I'm more active on Instagram than Twitter, but they're both there. And I will be launching my website at akilahcharlemagne.com later this year, to be determined. But I anticipate in the next 2 months or so. And I am writing a book. And so my goal is to finish that this year as well.
Okay.
So
is that related to what you do, or is it a fiction?
Career Lemonade, yeah.
Okay.
So it's really all about helping you know that relationships matter, and to leverage them to really have a positive impact on your career and your business.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I'll definitely put links on the page for people to get access to that easier. Anything else?
No, I just thank you for having me, and I'm so glad that your wife Cait connected us. Again, power of connections. And I wish you an amazing weekend with your family.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing and participating.
My pleasure.